In that moment of public rejection, she experienced a humiliation so profound it stripped her of dignity. Kicked out of first class in front of eyes that saw only her disgrace, her heart broke under the weight of betrayal. Every whispered judgment, every knowing glance, deepened her pain until even the faintest hope seemed a distant, shattered memory. Yet, amid the raw wounds and tear-stained despair, a steely resolve began to kindle within her, a determination to unearth the hidden truths behind her public downfall. This is not just the story of a simple disgrace, but of a quiet fury born from relentless torment. A journey where each tear is a testament to her suffering and every step toward redemption is paved with the echoes of a shattered past. Dare to follow her path, where the sting of humiliation ignites an extraordinary quest for truth and a reclaiming of self-worth. Before diving into this gripping tale, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more inspiring stories like this one. The rain fell in a steady, silver drizzle over the city, softening the sharp edges of the neon lights and reflecting them like broken mirrors on the slick pavement. In the small, warmly lit apartment overlooking the busy streets, Emma sat at a rickety wooden table, the faint hum of a distant thunderstorm setting the tone for her restless thoughts. Every drop of rain that tapped against the window seemed to echo her inner uncertainties, a prelude to the storm that would reshape her life. Emma's apartment was modest and unassuming, much like the girl herself. The faded wallpaper, once a vibrant tapestry of blue and gold, now bore the subtle marks of time and were a testament to years of simple living and quiet resilience. In this space, where every creak and whisper of the old building carried memories of better days, Emma clung to the hope that things would eventually change. Yet, on that particular evening, hope felt as fragile as the glistening droplets that adorned the windowpane. She reached out with trembling fingers and unfolded an envelope that had arrived earlier that day, a letter written in careful, looping handwriting, its envelope bearing no return address. As Emma slowly opened it, the soft rustle of paper almost drowned out the muted symphony of the city outside. Inside, she found words that whispered secrets of a future she had never dared to dream of. The message hinted at mysteries, betrayals, and life-altering revelations, though its true intent was shrouded in ambiguity. The letter's cryptic promise ignited a spark deep within her, urging her to confront the hidden truths of her existence, even as fear slithered at the edges of her heart. Across town, the air buzzed with rumors that blended into the tapestry of everyday life. It was said that on a cold winter morning, a simple girl had been unceremoniously kicked out of the first-class cabin on an international flight. The incident was dismissed by many as a mere misunderstanding, a momentary lapse in decorum. Yet beneath the surface, there lay a story far more dramatic. A tale that involved a woman whose unassuming demeanor masked the extraordinary secret of being married to one of the world's wealthiest men. But for Emma, the letter in her hand was not just a relic of scandal or gossip. It was the key to unlocking a chapter of her life that she had long resisted. Outside her apartment, the city pulsed with a mix of energy and melancholy. The streets, wet from a continuous rain, carried the footprints of countless lives interwoven in a fabric of hope, despair, dreams, and disappointments. Emma's life, though seemingly ordinary to the untrained eye, was a mirror to that complexity. She had grown up learning to embrace the quiet beauty of simplicity and the subtle strength that came from overcoming adversity. Every hardship and every small victory had etched layers of resolve into her character, making her the quiet rebel she was today. As she read and reread the letter, memories of her past surfaced like ghostly reflections in the rain-soaked glass. There were moments of laughter shared with her mother during sunlit afternoons and nights of solitary sorrow when the weight of life seemed too much to bear. In those moments, the world had appeared both vast and cruel, a stage where she played the role of the unassuming spectator, never daring to challenge her fate. Yet now, with the promise of an unknown destiny beckoning from the silent words on the paper, Emma felt that familiar, long-forgotten spark of defiance rekindling within her. The narrative of her life, had always been written in delicate strokes of determination and quiet fortitude, even as events beyond her control threatened to shatter the fragile order of her world. That fateful morning when the unthinkable happened, when she was expelled from the plush sanctuary of first class, had seared itself into her memory. In that heart-wrenching moment, she had been judged by superficial standards, her identity reduced to the simple label of the girl who got kicked out. Yet, what the onlookers failed to see was that beneath her composed exterior lay the heart of someone who cherished freedom and authenticity above all else. In the hours that followed that incident, as she trudged along the rain-dappled sidewalks of the bustling city, Emma felt a deep, stirring connection to a larger narrative, one that intertwined the lives of strangers with secrets and shared destinies. Each step she took was a silent vow to reclaim the dignity that had been so callously stripped away and to write her own story with the ink of self-respect and newfound courage. The city's nighttime silhouette blurred with shifting shadows and radiant bursts of neon, a living canvas that mirrored the inner turmoil of its inhabitants. Emma's journey that night was both physical and metaphorical, a passage from confinement to liberation. Every raindrop, every echoing footstep, was a reminder of the relentless march of time, urging her to seize the moment and transform the cryptic promise of the letter into the guiding light of her future. In that modest apartment, with the rain narrating tales of rebirth and the letter pulsating with quiet mystery, Emma found herself at the crossroads of destiny. The simple act of reading that letter became a gateway to reflection, a moment when the vibrant hues of her past and the uncertain shadows of her future converged. It was in that delicate intersection of time and emotion that she recognized the profound truth. Life was not defined by the judgments of a fleeting moment or the narrow confines of societal labels. Instead, it was a mosaic of experiences etched with the beauty of imperfection and the courage to rise again. As the storm outside began to subside, leaving behind a calm that felt almost surreal, Emma allowed herself a moment of stillness, a pause to let the quiet strength of her resolve sink in. She realized that the mysteries hinted at in the letter were not merely obstacles to overcome, but invitations to rediscover herself, to reconnect with parts of her spirit that had been dormant for far too long. In that transformative solitude, the city felt both immense and intimately connected to her very being. Emma closed her eyes and took a deep, measured breath, feeling a subtle shift within her, a stirring sense of empowerment. The narrative of her life was poised for a new beginning, one that would defy expectations and challenge the very notions of status and identity. Little did she know, this moment of introspection was merely the opening act in a grand performance that would soon see alliances formed, hearts betrayed, and the quiet resilience of a simple girl written in the bold strokes of destiny. The journey ahead was shrouded in mystery, with each new step promising revelations that would test the strength of her convictions and the depth of her emotions. Yet, in that fleeting moment, illuminated by the lingering glow of streetlights and the soft hum of a city finding peace in the aftermath of a storm, Emma embraced her path. She clutched the letter close, its words etching themselves into her soul, a silent reminder that life, in all its unpredictable glory, was hers to command. And so, as the night turned gradually to the soft light of a new dawn, Emma prepared to step out of the confines of her modest world and into a destiny that was waiting to be discovered, a destiny that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, love, and the power that lay within a single unassuming moment. The morning after the relentless storm brought an eerie stillness to the city, Emma awoke to a world that no longer felt familiar. The gentle light filtering through her apartment's dusty blinds did little to mask the disquiet that churned within her. In the quiet, she sensed that the letter's mysterious promise was only the beginning, a harbinger of events that would soon overturn every certainty she had clung to. As Emma prepared for the day, the routine motions of making tea and glancing at the old clock were interrupted by an unexpected sound from the door. It was not the usual creak of a neighbor's passing footsteps, but the frantic, muffled knocking of someone desperate to be heard. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, she opened the door to discover a man standing on her stoop, his soaked coat clinging to his frame and his eyes wide with urgency. "Emma, I need to speak with you," he stammered in a trembling voice that betrayed both fear and resolve. His name was Christopher, a name as familiar and comforting as it was strange for someone she had never met before. There was an undeniable gravity about him, a sense that he carried burdens not easily shared. In that moment, Emma felt the true weight of fate crashing down upon her delicate equilibrium. Inside the narrow hallway, the air was thick with tension as Christopher spoke, his words tumbling out in a rush. He explained that while researching a case for a friend, a case that began with a scandal involving a high-flying airline and a seemingly unremarkable girl expelled from first class, he stumbled upon connections that reached deeper than anyone could imagine. His eyes locked with Emma's, and it was as if he was searching for something in her expression. Confirmation that the path he was treading could indeed lead to the truth. "You need to know, Emma," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "There are forces at work that go far beyond a mere act of snobbery on an airplane. There is a network of deception, secrets hidden behind elegant facades, and betrayals that have shaped the lives of those we thought we knew." His tone was a mixture of warning and urgency, suggesting that his discovery was intertwined with her own destiny. Emma's heart pounded as Christopher revealed the extent of the mystery. He spoke of clandestine meetings in darkened rooms where powerful individuals convened to manipulate fortunes, where whispers of forbidden alliances filled the corridors of luxury hotels, and where the very notion of loyalty was traded like a common currency. The unsettling part was not the conspiracy itself, but the hint that someone very close to Emma might be involved, though the details were thin and obscured by layers of deception. In a voice both calm and strained, Christopher described how he had come across evidence linking the scandal of the first-class incident to a network of influential families, including one whose secrets he insinuated could shatter entire lives if exposed. Emma listened intently, her mind racing. The possibility that her own life might be cast into the midst of such treachery felt both overwhelming and disturbingly familiar. After all, the letter that had ignited her inner fire had whispered of hidden truths and unanticipated connections, a promise now echoed in Christopher's dire tone. As his narrative unfolded, Emma's thoughts drifted to the fragments of her past, a past marked by quiet endurance, hidden scars, and the fear of betrayal that had scarred her relationships long before this moment. Christopher's revelations stirred memories she had long repressed. Whispers of half-truths from relatives, glimpses of secretive meetings among acquaintances, and the unexplained absences of those who had once sworn loyalty. Even the comfort of her solitary apartment now seemed permeated with the potential for deception. The turning point came when Christopher unveiled a single damning piece of evidence, a photograph blurred at the edges and taken in a shadowy corridor of a grand hotel. It depicted a group of well-dressed individuals, their faces partially hidden by darkness, one of whom bore an uncanny resemblance to a close friend from Emma's past, a friend whose name was Michael. Michael, with his easy smile and seemingly trustworthy nature, had always been a source of support during her trials. Now, however, he loomed in the half-light of a secret that could unravel the fabric of her trust. The photograph was more than a simple image. It was a symbol of a betrayal waiting to be fully realized. Emma's inner world trembled as she stared at the evidence, her emotions a swirling mix of disbelief and dread. Could Michael, the person she had confided her vulnerabilities to, really be entangled in this intricate web of schemes and hidden agendas? The thought was unbearable, and yet there was an undeniable need to know the truth. In that charged moment, the small apartment transformed into a crucible where past and present converged. The gentle hum of the city outside no longer offered solace, but instead served as a reminder of the relentless march of fate. The rain had washed away the traces of yesterday, but in its place, a torrent of questions and doubts had taken root. Emma felt both exposed and empowered. Exposed by the stark reality that nothing in her life was as it seemed, and empowered by the stirrings of resolve to uncover the true nature of those around her. The minutes stretched into an eternity as Emma absorbed Christopher's account. His words, though laden with urgency, also carried a weight of consequence that resonated deeply within her. The mission he had inadvertently cast upon her shoulders was clear. She needed to peel back the layers of an intricate deception to confront the secrets buried beneath the veneer of normalcy. And as the realization dawned, a single ominous thought emerged. Every relationship, every friendship might be subject to the corrosive touch of betrayal. A hush fell over the cramped hallway as Christopher's voice softened. "I don't mean to alarm you," he said, "but you are connected to this, Emma, more than you realize." The statement hung in the air, potent and heavy with implication. It was a warning that the quiet life she had lived was a fragile illusion, and that the truths concealed beneath the surface were poised to shatter her world. That day, as Emma bid farewell to Christopher with a promise to seek answers, a palpable shift had taken place in her existence. The incident on the doorstep was not merely a chance encounter. It was the spark that ignited a dangerous journey into a realm of secrets, lies, and the imminent threat of betrayal. The image of Michael in the dim light of the photograph hovered at the edges of her consciousness, foreshadowing the central conflict that would soon pit her loyalty against the inexorable pull of hidden truths. In the quiet aftermath of that encounter, with the city awakening to a new day, Emma stood at the precipice of a transformation that left little room for the familiar comforts of her past. The inciting event had disrupted her orderly life, compelling her to confront the unsettling possibility that the people she had trusted might be orchestrators of a deeper deception. With each breath, she felt the burden of impending choices, a weight that would redefine her identity and question everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and the nature of truth. As the hours unfolded, the sunlight cutting through the dissipating mist, Emma's resolve hardened. In the swirling eddies of uncertainty, a quiet determination took hold. No longer would she allow the shadows of doubt to obscure her path. Instead, she would embark on a quest for clarity, even if it meant facing the heart-wrenching betrayal of those closest to her. The stage was set, and the first tremors of a far-reaching conspiracy had been laid bare, each moment drawing her deeper into the labyrinth of secrets that would ultimately force her to redefine the very essence of her existence. Emma's world, already rocked by the unsettling revelation at her door, now became a stage where relationships and hidden tensions emerged with searing clarity. Over the following days, every conversation, every glance between familiar faces carried the weight of unspoken truths. In the dim light of an early autumn evening, Emma met with Christopher at a quiet, secluded cafe on the edge of the city. The establishment, with its worn leather chairs and lingering aroma of roasted coffee, was the kind of place that invited confessions. They sat at a small table by the window, the city's languid hum enveloping them in a cocoon of secrecy. Christopher's eyes held a mixture of resolve and vulnerability as he began, "Emma, there's much more to what you've been told. The network I mentioned, it isn't just a collection of names. It's a web that touches every corner of our lives." His voice was low, threaded with the weight of responsibility, and Emma could sense how deeply the knowledge affected him. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she folded them across her lap. "But why me?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the soft clinks of porcelain cups and murmurs of nearby patrons. "Why now? After all these years of living in my quiet little world?" Christopher hesitated for a heartbeat, the silence stretching between them as his gaze wandered to the rain-speckled window before returning to her. "I think you've always been connected in ways you can't imagine," he confessed. "There were moments in your past, minor details you dismissed, that hinted at something larger, a connection to those who control the narrative behind every public facade." At that moment, Michael entered the conversation, his presence as unexpected as it was piercing. Michael, one of Emma's oldest friends, approached their table with a cautious smile, his eyes betraying the calm he desperately tried to maintain. "Emma, I heard you might be in need of some company," he said, his tone laced with a warmth that felt genuine, yet carried an undercurrent of unease. Emma greeted him with a reserved smile, acutely aware that his arrival further complicated the web of alliances. Michael's presence was familiar, his demeanor seemingly open and caring. Yet the photograph from the mysterious package still haunted her thoughts. Could it be true? Was Michael part of a conspiratorial circle that held the keys to her unfolding drama? Later that evening, as the cafe's lights dimmed and the crowd began to thin, the three of them found themselves in a quieter corner of Michael's spacious penthouse. The ambience was intimate, with soft music drifting through the open windows and a gentle fire flickering in the hearth. Here, in the intimate glow of dusk, hidden tensions began to crystallize in every exchanged glance and measured word. Sitting on a plush velvet sofa, Michael broke the silence. "I never imagined I'd see you caught up in all this. Emma, you deserve to know everything, even if it shakes you to the core." His voice was gentle, yet every word rang with an earnest desperation to make amends for secrets long buried. Emma's eyes searched his face, catching the trace of guilt that lurked behind his calm exterior. "What are you not telling me, Michael? There's something here that doesn't add up," she demanded, her tone equal parts hurt and determined. Michael sighed deeply, his gaze drifting to the flickering flames. "There are parts of my past that I've tried so hard to leave behind," he admitted. "I've been involved, however peripherally, with people who operate in shadows. I never meant for it to affect you or to put you in harm's way. But now everything is coming to light, and I fear that my silence might have cost us more than I ever realized." Christopher, who had been quietly observing the interaction, interjected with a voice laced with both caution and urgency. "We must be careful with what we reveal, Michael. Every word, every confession might tip someone off. We're all caught in this intricate dance, each of us playing a part we never chose, yet cannot escape." Emma's heart pounded as she absorbed the gravity of these revelations. There was a crack in the facade of closeness that had defined their friendship for so long, a crack that slowly widened with the admission of hidden pasts and suppressed truths. In her mind, memories began to blend with the present. Clandestine late-night phone calls, unexplained absences from gatherings, and the fleeting looks of worry that Michael had always brushed aside. Now, these recollections formed a mosaic of betrayal and vulnerability. In a quiet moment of introspection, Emma recalled the early days when their friendship was untainted by secrets. Michael had been a beacon of reliability, his smiles and comforting words anchoring her during turbulent times. But as he continued, "I try to distance myself from that life, to shield you both from the fallout." Emma could see that his attempts at redemption were marred by the stains of his past misdeeds. "So, does that mean you were a part of the very network that now threatens my world?" Emma asked, her voice wavering between betrayal and sorrow. She struggled to reconcile the man she had known with a man who now seemed complicit in a dangerous conspiracy. Michael's response was agonizingly slow, his eyes meeting hers with a mixture of regret and resignation. "I was involved, yes, but not in the way you'd imagine," he murmured. "I was a minor cog in a much larger machine, one that I tried desperately to escape. I never trusted them, and now, I fear my past has come back to haunt us all." Christopher's steady interjection was a reminder of the stakes at hand. "Emma, Michael's admission is a piece of a much larger puzzle. This isn't about assigning blame or making absolutes. It's about understanding how deep the roots of this deception run and what it means for all of us moving forward." His eyes shone with a sincerity that underscored his role as both a messenger and a guide in this unfolding drama. As the conversation unfolded, the trio found themselves ensnared in a delicate interplay of dialogue and introspection, each revelation pulling them deeper into the labyrinth of secrets. Every pause was filled with an unspoken question. Could they trust each other enough to confront the looming threat? Could their bonds, once thought unbreakable, withstand the gusts of past mistakes and betrayal? Emma listened to Michael's account with a growing sense of inner turmoil. Her mind raced, the words of the mysterious letter merging with the current confessions, forming a dissonant melody of suspicion and longing. In a moment of poignant clarity, she realized that the relationships she had so long taken for granted were as fragile as the rain-soaked glass of her apartment window, a delicate veneer concealing layers of hidden pain. "We need to find out who else is involved," Emma declared, her voice steady despite the tumult raging within her. "I'm not willing to be a pawn in someone else's game. Whatever it takes, I want to know the truth." A heavy silence fell upon them, punctuated only by the soft crackle of the fire. Michael's face twisted with remorse as he echoed her sentiment. "I want that truth too, Emma. I've spent years haunted by my choices, and if unearthing these secrets can bring us some semblance of redemption, then I'm ready to do it, no matter the cost." Christopher leaned forward, his tone resolute yet compassionate. "Our path won't be easy. There will be betrayals and difficult choices to make, but in our vulnerability lies our strength. Trust is fragile, yet it's the only thing that can bind us in the face of such overwhelming adversity." At that moment, each of them understood that this was more than just uncovering a hidden network of conspiracies. It was about confronting their inner demons, accepting the imperfections of a past filled with regrets, and finding the courage to forge a future on the shaky ground of their collective truths. Emma's eyes, filled with a mixture of determination and lingering hurt, met Michael's and Christopher's. Here, in the soft glow of a room that had become a sanctuary of honesty, a fragile alliance was born. As the night deepened, the personal vulnerabilities that had lain dormant were now exposed, intertwining with the broader tapestry of betrayal and redemption. Emma felt the sting of tears that she refused to shed, not because she was unfeeling, but because each tear was a silent vow to fight for the truth. The dialogue between the three had laid the foundation for a battle of wits, hearts, and loyalties, one in which every secret uncovered would reshape the contours of their intertwined lives. In the reflective quiet that followed, Emma's thoughts echoed with the realization that trust, once fractured, demanded more than just time to repair. It required transparency, sacrifice, and above all, a steadfast commitment to confront the consequences of every hidden lie. And as the embers of the fire dimmed, a resolute promise anchored her soul. Despite the betrayals of the past and the uncertain path ahead, she would never let the darkness of secrets extinguish the light of her truth. Late that night, as a cool breeze whispered through the half-open window, Emma sat alone in her living room, her mind a turbulent sea of doubt and questions. The confession that Michael had offered in the soft glow of the penthouse fire still haunted her, echoing with every flicker of dying embers. Just as she attempted to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the fractured pieces of his revelations, a soft knock at her apartment door jolted her from her reverie. Cautiously, she approached the door and found no one waiting on the threshold. Instead, resting on the mat was a small, cream-colored envelope, its seal stamped with intricate lettering that she didn't recognize. With trembling hands, she broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. As her eyes scanned the flowing script, the words blurred into a confession that would shatter her world. The letter, written in a careful yet hurried hand, began by addressing her not as Emma, but with an unfamiliar title, a term of respect that hinted at secrets from a realm she had never imagined. It spoke of an intricate plan spanning years and of loyalties hidden beneath polished facades. The letter revealed that Michael's involvement with the network was not born solely of regret or chance. In fact, he had been a willing participant, manipulated by someone far more powerful. His true role was not that of a repentant minor cog, but a deliberate orchestrator meant to guide her down a perilous path. Her heart pounding, Emma read on. The letter disclosed that the first-class incident, for which she had been publicly humiliated, was no random act of cruelty. It was a calculated move, a test devised by her husband. In a revelation that felt as if the ground were crumbling beneath her feet, she discovered that the man she had trusted implicitly, the man whose love and quiet support had enveloped her in comfort, was not the humble partner she believed him to be. Instead, he was a man of extraordinary wealth and influence, the secret billionaire owner of the very airline that had so callously cast her out of first class. The letter, ensigned and ominous, painted a picture of a double life, a man who lived in the shadows of both gentleness and power. Emma's mind raced. How could the husband she had known, the man who had always shielded her from the world's harshness, harbor such a monumental secret? The betrayal was almost too immense to fathom. Tears blurred her vision as she reread the damning words, her body trembling with a mixture of sorrow, anger, and disbelief. Unable to contain her emotions, Emma grabbed her phone and dialed Michael's number without a second thought. The ringing echoed in the silent apartment until, finally, Michael answered in a hushed tone. "Emma, I didn't expect you to call so soon," he murmured. "Michael, who sent me this? It says that my husband, that he is the billionaire behind the airline that humiliated me," she demanded, her voice cracking with pain. "And it accuses you of being a willing part of this deceit. Explain yourself. Why haven't you told me any of this before?" There was a long pause on the other end, punctuated only by the sound of Michael's labored breath. When he finally spoke, his tone was somber, barely above a whisper. I wanted to protect you, Emma. I never imagined the truth would come out like this. I was following orders, trying to keep the greater secret under wraps." "Orders?" Emma echoed, incredulity lacing every word. "Who could possibly have the authority to command you to orchestrate such treachery? And why my husband? Why involve me in this elaborate deception?" Michael's silence was heavy with regret before he offered a feeble explanation. "There's a legacy, Emma. Your husband built his fortune on secrets and shadows long before you ever knew him. I was once close to his inner circle, a confidant turned unwilling accomplice. I couldn't tell you then. You were too precious, too untarnished by that world. I thought keeping the truth hidden would preserve your happiness." The confession sent shivers down Emma's spine. The man she had seen as her safe harbor had been living a lie, a life immersed in schemes and hidden fortunes. The quiet moments they had spent discussing life's simple pleasures now felt like carefully constructed illusions. "So, everything, my humiliation on that flight, the letter, even our conversations, were part of a grand design?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her heart. "Yes," Michael replied, his voice thick with remorse. "I was tasked with ensuring you confronted the reality of your husband's world, of his true identity. And as painful as it is, you needed to see it for yourself, to understand that the simple life you embraced was built on a foundation of deception." On the other end of the line, Emma's anguish transformed into a bitter resolve. "Why didn't you ever think I deserved the truth?" she demanded, the hurt evident in every syllable. "Every moment I trusted you, I believed in our friendship, in loyalty, and now I learned that even that was just part of his plan. I never intended to hurt you," Michael pleaded, his voice cracking. "Every choice I made was to shield you from the full horror of his duplicity. I saw you struggling, trying to piece together a life that seemed simpler than it truly was. I thought delaying the revelation was an act of kindness, not betrayal." As the conversation unfolded, Emma's mind whirled with conflicting emotions. She recalled all the unexplained moments, the sudden disappearances, the guarded expressions, the subtle hints that something was amiss. Now, every memory was tainted with a deeper sense of betrayal. The letter had done more than reveal a scandal. It had unraveled the tapestry of trust she had so carefully woven around herself, exposing threads of deception she never knew existed. After the phone call ended, Emma sank into her couch, the letter clutched in her hands like a burning brand. The room, once a sanctuary of solace, now felt alien and hostile. Every shadow, every quiet corner, seemed to mock her innocence. The revelation that her husband, the man who had been her rock, was in fact the secret billionaire behind an elaborate scheme had turned her world upside down. And Michael's involvement, it was as if the very foundation of every relationship in her life had been built on lies. In the silence that followed, Emma's introspection became a torrent. She recalled the days when she believed in unguarded honesty, when love and friendship were pure and untainted by ulterior motives. Now, her reflection in the mirror appeared as a stranger's, a woman marked by betrayal and searching for truth in a labyrinth of deceit. Determined to confront the reality of her shattered life, Emma resolved to seek out answers from her husband, whose carefully guarded secrets now loomed over every memory they had shared. The city outside, with its steady pulse and indifferent neon glow, continued its rhythm, oblivious to the internal catastrophe that raged within her. But Emma knew that the world she thought she understood was now forever altered. In that moment of profound isolation, she recognized that the twist in her life was not just an act of betrayal, it was the beginning of a deeper journey. A journey where every familiar face, every whispered promise, might hide motives far darker than she could ever imagine. The revelation had complicated her path, forcing her to question the very essence of trust and loyalty that she had held dear. As the first light of dawn began to seep through the curtains, Emma gathered herself. With the letter as her grim reminder and Michael's confession ringing in her ears, she prepared to step into the harsh glare of truth. No longer would she be a bystander in her own life. The betrayal, as devastating as it was, had ignited a fierce determination to reclaim her identity. One forged not by deception, but by the unwavering commitment to seek justice for her own wounded heart. Emma's world had become a battleground of conflicting emotions and mounting challenges. In the silent moments before dawn, she sat alone at her kitchen table, the weight of the recent revelations pressing upon her like an unyielding force. Every corner of her modest apartment seemed to echo with memories of trust now shattered, and with each ticking second, the tension within her grew more palpable. The previous night's confrontation with Michael had left her reeling. His confession that her husband, the man who once seemed devoted and unassuming, was in fact the secret billionaire behind an elaborate scheme, had ignited a storm of betrayal. But as Emma stared into the half-light of the coming day, another equally formidable challenge emerged. The dread of facing her husband and unmasking the full extent of his deception. The decision before her was as clear as it was devastating. Either continue living in a carefully constructed illusion or confront the harsh, unvarnished truth, regardless of the cost. Her heart pounded in her chest as she recalled the hushed dialogue from the previous night. Michael's words, heavy with regret, had offered no comfort, only the bitter taste of manipulation. "I was following orders," he had whispered, as if the notion of accountability had long since evaporated from his conscience. Now, Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Every revelation had deepened the chasm between who she thought her husband was and the man he truly had been. Across town, in a lavish office building with floor-to-ceiling windows, her husband, Daniel, prepared for his day with a calm efficiency that belied the chaos festering beneath the surface of his life. Unlike Emma, he maintained a veneer of control, a quiet confidence that masked hidden depths and perhaps even darker intentions. Daniel's world was one of high stakes and calculated risk, a realm where power and money often clouded moral judgment. His dual existence, once compartmentalized, was beginning to unravel as the echoes of Emma's discoveries crept closer. Later that morning, Emma forced herself to venture out, her footsteps heavy as they carried her to a secluded park where she and Daniel had often met in happier times. The park's once familiar pathways now appeared alien as if tinted with betrayal. The crisp autumn air bit at her skin, and every rustling leaf reminded her of the truth that threatened to upend her carefully ordered life. At a stone bench under a sprawling oak, Emma sat waiting for him. Each minute dragged on endlessly, her mind oscillating between fear and fierce determination. When Daniel finally appeared, his tailored suit and measured gait barely masked the storm of ambition that lay beneath. His eyes, usually so gentle, held an unreadable glimmer that made Emma's pulse quicken. "Emma," he greeted softly, as though the word itself carried a weight of unspoken history. His voice was calm, betraying no hint of the internal conflict that must have tormented him in the hours leading up to this encounter. "Daniel," she replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. The space between them filled with an unspoken tension, every gesture and inflection laden with implications of the deception now laid bare. Emma's internal world roiled with memories of shared laughter and whispered promises, moments of vulnerability that now took on a more dubious meaning. "How are you?" Daniel asked, a note of disarming concern in his tone. It was a question that now felt ironic, given the betrayal that had seeped into every crevice of her existence. "I'm managing," Emma answered, her tone tight with restrained emotion. The silence that followed was punctuated only by the distant rustle of wind through the trees, a sound that seemed to accentuate the fragility of their connection. At last, Emma could no longer contain herself. "Daniel, I know everything," she stated, her voice trembling with both hurt and determination. "I know about the airline, about the letter, and about Michael's confession. How could you let me live a lie? How could you hide this part of who you are from me for so long?" For a long moment, Daniel remained silent. His face was an inscrutable mask, revealing nothing of the tumult that must have roiled within him. Finally, his gaze softened as he spoke. "Emma, you have every right to feel betrayed. I never intended for any of this to hurt you. I wanted to protect you from the harsh realities of my world." "Protect me?" Emma's voice cracked, equal parts anger and sorrow. "Is that what you call manipulation? I thought our love was built on honesty, on trust. But now I see it was all just a carefully crafted illusion designed to keep me blind." His eyes widened slightly, a flash of remorse mingled with something indefinable, guilt, perhaps, or resignation. "There are things you do not understand," Daniel said softly. "I've lived my entire life with this burden, making choices that no one should have to bear. I kept these secrets because I believed that if you never knew, you could live a life of simplicity and beauty, far removed from the greed and corruption of this world." Emma's heart ached at his words, torn between a lingering love and a deep-seated betrayal. "But why me, Daniel? Why should I have to pay the price for your choices?" she demanded, her voice rising with each syllable. The park, the oak tree, and the rustling leaves all seemed to conspire with her anguish, accentuating the palpable tension between truth and deception. Daniel took a tentative step closer, as if trying to bridge the vast chasm that now separated them. "I did what I thought was best for both of us. I believed that by keeping some parts of my life hidden, I could shield you from the darkness that tainted every part of it." His tone was laden with sorrow, but there was an edge of desperation there as well, as if he too was wrestling with the consequences of his choices. As they stood there, caught in the crossfire of conflicting emotions, Emma felt the internal dilemmas intensify. On one hand, she longed to salvage the remnants of their shared past, the moments of joy, and the warmth of their intimacy. On the other hand, the truth, as brutal as it was, demanded acknowledgement, a reckoning for the years she had lived in blissful ignorance. In a moment of piercing clarity, Emma recalled the letter in her hands, the cold, hard truth it revealed, not only about Daniel but also about Michael's reluctant complicity. The scent of betrayal, like a bitter perfume, clung to every word he spoke. "I trusted you, Daniel," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I trusted you with my heart, and now that trust is shattered. How can I ever believe anything you say again?" Daniel's eyes fell, and for a long stretch of silence, the only sound was the whisper of wind through the leaves. "I understand if you can't forgive me, Emma," he finally said in a voice rife with regret. "But please believe me when I say that I never meant for any of this to come between us. I was trying to protect you, even if my methods were flawed." Yet, despite his words, the external challenges loomed large. The city beyond the park, with its relentless pace and indifferent glare, seemed to press in on them. Rumors had begun circulating, hints of a scandal that would soon engulf both of their worlds. Emma felt the crushing weight of impending public exposure. A life once lived in quiet dignity now stood on the precipice of ruin. Her internal battle raged as she weighed the impossibility of forgiveness against the remnants of love still flickering within her. Was it possible to rebuild trust from the ashes of betrayal? Could she find the strength to confront not only Daniel's secrets, but also the external forces determined to tear their lives apart? As the morning sun broke over the horizon, casting long shadows on the dew-covered grass, Emma took a slow, deliberate breath. The crisp air carried with it both the promise of a new beginning and the harsh reality of consequences yet to unfold. "I need time," she said quietly, her words a fragile olive branch extended across the chasm of hurt and uncertainty. time to understand, and time to decide if there is any path forward for us." Daniel bowed his head in silent acknowledgement, his own heart heavy with regret and longing. "I will give you that time, Emma," he murmured. "I only hope that someday you can see that my love, however misguided in its expression, was real." In that tender yet turbulent moment, the tension between them simmered, an ever-present reminder that love and betrayal often dance on a razor's edge. Emma knew that the choices before her were fraught with peril. Each decision she made would either lead her closer to the truth or further into the labyrinth of deception that had so far defined her life. With the external challenges mounting and the internal dilemmas tearing at her soul, Emma felt both crushed by the magnitude of her discovery and strangely empowered by the need to choose her own destiny. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was painfully clear. The simplicity of her past was irrevocably lost, replaced by a complex tapestry of secrets, choices, and the ever-escalating tension of a betrayed love. As she watched Daniel disappear into the bustling crowd of the city, Emma resolved in that quiet, dewy morning to face the storm head-on. No longer would she allow herself to be a passive victim of fate. She would actively seek the truth, no matter how painful it might be. In the interplay of light and shadow, trust and treachery, the next chapter of her life was set to be written, a chapter defined by the courage to embrace the full weight of her own truth. Emma's heart thundered like a distant drum as she approached the abandoned industrial warehouse on the edge of the city. The faded red bricks and broken windows bore silent witness to a story now reaching its inevitable end. Under the ghostly glow of a half-moon, she stepped into a cavernous space where echoes of the past mingled with the raw tension of the present. Tonight, every secret, every whispered lie was to be laid bare in a confrontation that promised no escape from the truth. Inside the warehouse, shadows danced along the peeling walls as if orchestrating a final, desperate ballet of revelations. Daniel stood at the center of the room, his face etched with a mixture of regret and determination, framed by the stark silhouettes of crates and rusted machinery. Across from him, Emma saw Michael emerge from the darkness, his features illuminated briefly by a stray beam of light. The air trembled with the weight of years spent concealing the truth. This night, nothing would be hidden any longer. "Emma," Daniel's voice resonated with a quiet intensity. "There's no turning back now." His tone bore the heaviness of a life built on shattered illusions. He stepped forward, his eyes meeting hers with a longing to make amends, even as the gravity of his misdeeds pressed upon him like a physical force. Emma's gaze swept over the assembly, a trio bound by love, betrayal, and a tangled web of deception. "Daniel, Michael," she began, her voice steady despite the storm raging within, "we stand here at the crossroads of every promise I believed in and every secret that has undone us. I need to know why." Her words, charged with a mixture of heartbreak and defiant resolve, hung in the cool air, each syllable demanding honesty. Michael's eyes flickered with inner turmoil as he interjected softly, "Emma, I never meant for any of this to hurt you. I did what I thought would protect you from the darkness, a darkness that has haunted Daniel's world for so long." His voice wavered, torn between loyalty and the bitter taste of regret. Daniel's response was measured, yet the raw pain underlying his tone was unmistakable. "I built a life, a fortress, to shield you from a world I thought unworthy of your light. But in my pursuit to protect, I only imprisoned you in a cage of lies." His admission cut through the silence like a knife, each word a confession of betrayal that shattered the carefully constructed facade of their relationship. As the three of them stood amid the echoes of clattering chains and the steady drip of condensation from the warehouse's high rafters, Emma felt the emotional tension surge like a tidal wave. The warehouse became a theater where every hidden truth would finally be enacted in vivid relief. "How could you, Daniel? How could you let me live in ignorance when every moment was built on deception?" Her cry was both an accusation and a requiem for all that had been lost. The air vibrated with a sudden intensity as Daniel's gaze hardened, and he slowly produced a worn leather-bound folder from beneath his coat. Inside this, he said, his voice catching as he extended it towards Emma, are the accounts and documents that reveal the origins of everything. My wealth, my network, the very secrets that have defined our lives. He opened the folder carefully on a nearby crate, its contents illuminated by a stray beam of moonlight. The pages, filled with cryptic entries, detailed transactions, and clandestine meetings, a ledger of duplicity that spanned decades. Emma's fingers trembled as she scanned the documents, each line a painful reminder of every trust shattered and every promise broken. "This is all of it," she whispered, her voice a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. Each document was a testament to Daniel's double life, a world of opulence built on the manipulation of truth and the exploitation of loyalty. Michael spoke then, his voice laden with remorse. "I was once part of that inner circle, compelled to do what I thought was right. I believed that by keeping you in the dark, I could spare you the horrors of his world." His confession mingled with tears, his admission a final act of contrition. "But I see now that secrecy only bred betrayal, and I am so sorry for the role I played in this tragedy." The confrontation reached its crescendo as Emma's internal resolve solidified into an unyielding force. Amid the interplay of raw emotions, the anguish of betrayal, the desperation for clarity, and the spark of hope for redemption, she demanded, "Enough of your apologies and justifications. I need to understand the truth, not just for me, but for all the lives ruined by these deceptions. Daniel, how do we mend what has been so utterly broken?" Daniel's eyes grew distant, as if recalling memories too painful to bear. "I've spent years living with these regrets," he murmured. "Every decision, every lie, was made in the hope that I could build a sanctuary for you. But in the end, I built a prison of my own making." His admission was a silent reckoning, a confession to a past that could no longer be denied. The ledger of lies lay scattered on the crate, symbolic of a past that was as inescapable as it was unforgiving. As the minutes passed, the warehouse bore witness to a symbolic exchange, a final unburdening of secrets. Emma, drawing upon an inner reservoir of strength, gathered the scattered pages and clutched them close. "These documents, your deeds, they may be the evidence of your betrayal, but they also mark the beginning of my liberation." Her tone was quiet but fierce, every word an affirmation of the power to choose truth over comfort. "I will not be defined by your lies. I will seek a new future that is built on honesty, even if the path is strewn with broken dreams." In that charged moment, the warehouse transformed into a crucible of transformation. The cool night air mingled with the heat of raw emotion, and every harsh whisper of confession was a step towards a resolution neither can fully deny nor erase. Michael's eyes met Emma's with a pleading hope for forgiveness, while Daniel stood in stoic remorse, burdened by the consequences of every hidden betrayal. Outside, the distant rumble of the city's waking life served as a reminder that the consequences of this night would reverberate far beyond these crumbling walls. Emma's internal storm gave way to a calm resolve as she whispered, "I choose to believe that truth, however painful, is the only path to freedom. Let this moment be our turning point, a lesson in the fragile yet resilient nature of love and trust." Her declaration rippled through the silence, a call for moral reckoning and the promise of new beginnings. In that final clash of emotions, as the secrets were fully exposed under the cold light of truth, the confrontation softened into a somber lull. Daniel's eyes closed as if accepting the magnitude of his decisions, while Michael's remorse hung heavily in the air, each man reflecting on the irrevocable impact of their choices. Emma, standing amid the tangible remnants of broken trust, felt the stirring of a new, unburdened self emerging from the wreckage. The night surrendered to the slow light of dawn as Emma stepped out of the warehouse, leaving behind a chamber of memories and shattered illusions. The cool morning breeze whispered promises of renewal and redemption. With each determined step into the uncertain future, she carried with her the lessons of betrayal and the unwavering resolve to rebuild her life on a foundation of honesty and introspection. In that final moment of confrontation, the warehouse had become more than a setting for a tragic climax. It was a silent witness to the transformative power of truth, leaving Emma, Daniel, and Michael with a shared understanding that even in the deepest betrayals, there lay a hope for redemption and a moral imperative to seek the path of genuine restoration. In the soft light of a new day, Emma slowly returned to the quiet solitude of her apartment, carrying with her the weight of the previous night's revelations. The warehouse, where every secret had been forced into the open, felt like a distant echo now, replaced by the gentle hum of early morning. As she stepped inside, the familiar corners of her humble living space brought both comfort and a deep lingering sadness, as if the walls themselves remembered a time when trust was unbroken and love was pure. Seated at her old wooden table, Emma carefully unfolded a faded scarf, a gift from Daniel on one of their happier days. Holding the scarf close, she allowed her mind to wander through the memories of shared laughter, whispered dreams, and tender moments. But now, those memories were interwoven with a painful clarity. Every smile had concealed an unspoken secret, every warm embrace had hidden the chill of betrayal. It was in these reflective moments that Emma began to grasp the moral complexity of her journey, a journey that had led her from simple joys to the labyrinth of deception. In the silence of her apartment, Emma remembered Daniel's soft apology in the warehouse, his voice thick with remorse as he admitted to building a life of luxury on a foundation of lies. The sting of betrayal was deep, yet within it lay a lesson about the nature of love and the price of secrets. "I chose to shelter you from my darker world," he had said, but Emma now understood that protecting someone by denying them the truth was a form of confinement, a prison built on the very foundations of love. She rose from the table and moved to her window, looking out at the awakening city. The rain had long since stopped, replaced by a translucent haze that blurred the lines between the remnants of night and the promise of day. As the light grew, Emma saw the city not as a vast expanse of indifference, but as a canvas of infinite possibility, an opportunity to rebuild on a new foundation of truth. In the distance, she could hear the rhythmic pulse of life, footsteps on wet pavement, a bicycle bell, the murmur of conversation. All these sounds reminded her that life, with all its disappointments and betrayals, continued to move forward. In the quiet of that morning, Emma reflected on the moral lessons that had emerged from the chaos. There was a poignant irony in how her once simple life had evolved, a tapestry woven with moments of genuine love, marred by the shadow of deception. Each betrayal had forced her to confront the uncomfortable reality that sometimes those we love are not wholly what they seem. And yet, even in the heart of that betrayal, there was a spark of liberation. By breaking through the illusions that had once chained her, Emma felt the stirrings of an inner strength that was both humbling and empowering. She remembered Michael's contrite words, his confession of regret for keeping secrets that had ultimately contributed to the unfolding tragedy. His remorse was a mirror of her own inner conflict, a reminder that every participant in this tangled web had paid a price for their choices. In Michael's sorrowful eyes, Emma saw the reflection of her own wounded soul, but also a call to forgiveness, a challenge to seek understanding even when the past could not be undone. That day, Emma decided to seek closure not only in her relationship with Daniel, but within herself. Determined to reclaim her identity, she composed a letter, a final expression of her painful journey, and a promise to move beyond the confines of deception. With simple, deliberate words, she wrote of the betrayal, the love, and the inevitable emergence of truth from the darkness. Each sentence was imbued with a raw sincerity, as if the act of writing could stitch together the broken pieces of her heart. Once finished, she folded the letter carefully and placed it in a small wooden box, a keepsake of moments both bitter and beautiful. This act was not just a way to memorialize the pain, but a commitment to the future. The box, a symbol of her readiness to let go, would serve as a reminder that even in the aftermath of betrayal, there was room for rebirth and moral growth. Later that afternoon, Emma made her way to a quiet cafe where she often spent time reading and reflecting. The soft murmur of conversations and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her, creating an atmosphere of gentle introspection. Sitting by a rain-speckled window, she looked out at the world with new eyes. No longer was she the naive girl who trusted unconditionally. She was someone tempered by hardship, someone who had learned that truth was not a luxury, but a necessity. In that moment, Emma realized that while the pain of betrayal might never fully vanish, its lessons could carve out a path to resilience and wisdom. Across town, Daniel had withdrawn into a silence of his own. In the quiet corners of his opulent home, the echoes of his misdeeds haunted him. Unlike Emma, whose heart had found its own way to heal through reflection, Daniel was trapped in a cycle of regret and justification. Their separate journeys, though intertwined, had diverged into a stark contrast of acceptance and denial. Emma, moving forward with determination and clarity, came to understand that forgiving others did not mean forgetting the past. It meant acknowledging it and then choosing to learn from it. That evening, as twilight softened the edges of the day, Emma took a long walk through the city's quiet streets. The air was cool, with a whisper of autumn's coming chill, and every step felt like an affirmation of her newfound resolve. The city lights flickered on, each one a small beacon of hope in the encroaching night. In her heart, Emma pondered the moral dimensions of her experiences, the cost of secrets, the fragility of trust, and the enduring power of self-realization. She recognized that every human choice bore a weight, a responsibility for the truth that was both freed and confined. Her journey had forced her to confront the uncomfortable reality that love and betrayal were intertwined, forever challenging the way one saw oneself and the world. Standing beneath a street lamp, Emma closed her eyes and allowed herself to feel the quiet strength that had blossomed within her. The pain was still there, etched into her soul like scars from a long-forgotten battle, yet in those scars lay proof of her survival and her capacity to grow. In that moment, she vowed to live a life guided by truth, compassion, and the courage to confront her inner demons. She realized that the path to redemption began not with the forgiveness of others, but with the acceptance of oneself, even in the face of betrayal. As the night deepened, Emma returned home with a peaceful resolve. She understood now that moral reflection was not an endpoint, but a journey, a continuous quest to rebuild one's identity from the fragments of shattered illusions. The lessons of the past would forever be a part of her, but they would no longer define her future. With each new day, she would choose truth over ease, authenticity over pretense, and forgiveness, not for others, but for herself. In the soft embrace of that reflective night, Emma's heart steadied. The conflicts of the past had been resolved, not in a dramatic explosion of anger or regret, but in a quiet acceptance of life's inherent imperfections. The moral implications of her story, a tale of hidden wealth, shattered trust, and ultimately personal redemption, had carved a space for her to emerge with a deeper understanding of what it meant to love, to lose, and to finally, wholeheartedly live. The journey had been long, and the path was still uncertain, but Emma felt ready to face the future, armed with the wisdom of hard-earned experience and the unyielding strength of a spirit reborn in truth. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.